Okay. Okay. Hi, everybody. This is Steve Sabludowsky, and today we have Jim Brown, who is going to discuss with me the recent developments with the Republican Party campaign, specifically dealing with Corey Lewandowski, campaign manager. And we're just going to talk about this in general. We'll have a little probably on and off discussion and look at some material. Jim Brown, a friend of mine, is a publisher, an ex-government official, statewide official for the state of Louisiana, and a columnist, a radio talk show host. If I'm leaving anything out, Jim, just chime in and let me know.
Well, you covered the gamut, Steve, but I might say that I write a national column, try to do things around the country, but invariably, whatever the week is politically, nationally, or whatever, it all comes back to Louisiana, if you're a Louisiana viewer. Later on in the program, maybe we can discuss the fact that Trump carries Louisiana, but doesn't carry the majority of the delegates. Everything seems to happen right here in Louisiana, so there's always plenty to talk about.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, and if we have some time, we will talk about that recent development in Louisiana. So thank you for pointing it out. So let me just make this, I guess, make this comment, and that is to say that I'm not a fan of Donald Trump, okay? And so, yes, I have a certain bias. I really don't like him or his politics. But having said that, I think it's fair to say, am I correct, that you are a fan of Donald Trump?
Well, I like the fact that he is going against the system. As far as in the columns I've written on Bayoubuzz.com, my radio shows, I've been saying for years that you can take both political parties in Washington and put them in a sack and shake them up, Republicans and Democrats alike. It doesn't matter who you pull out. They all talk the same. They act the same. It's all establishment politics. And a lot of people feel disenfranchised. I certainly do. I think Louisiana does. So Trump has hit a responsive note, I think, that at least is bringing a lot of issues to the core on trade, on immigration, things, quite frankly, I agree with. So I don't know who I'm going to vote for, quite frankly, but I can see where he's electrified a good part of this country today.
Okay, good. That's fair enough. And I can say this. I mean, I will vote, but I cannot imagine. I personally just cannot imagine voting for Donald Trump under any circumstance. But anyway, I'm just letting that out there just so that people understand where our perspectives are. So, having that as a ground, tell me, we're talking now specifically about Corey Lewandowski, the campaign manager, and why don't you, if you don't mind, tell us, do you think that the media is making too much of that situation, and if so, why, and if not, why? Why not?
I think you got to give the background of Donald Trump.
Sure.
I mean, he is a superstar. He's a television star. He draws huge crowds. Hillary Clinton gets 5,000. Trump gets 20,000. No, Hillary Clinton gets 500. Trump gets 20, 30,000. And so he is under the huge media glare, number one. Number two, there's been the focus of many protests at his rallies by people trying to disrupt the rallies who don't like Donald Trump. So he's a very incendiary figure. Having said that, I understand why he has security around him for his own protection. We can go back to Bobby Kennedy, who was killed campaigning. And so security is a necessity in this day and age. Trump is surrounded by security, and someone that breaks in is shoved away unless Trump says, bring him on in. I can understand that. So in this case of the campaign manager, Corey Lewandowski, he is right next to Donald Trump when a reporter breaks through security, puts a microphone in Donald Trump's front of his face. We've seen that over and over again on television. That's undisputed. She went through the security line and got right up to Trump. Well, Trump kind of moves on, and her hand is on his arm, and Lewandowski takes her to pull her away. I think that's pretty normal in these campaigns. We've seen it happen security-wise with all the other candidates. Now, all of a sudden, she's filed a complaint, apparently, and the news media is just going absolutely nuts. I watched CNN the other night with Anderson Cooper, and he asked the question 15 times about what he should or should not do. And so as a consequence, I think the media has stirred up what I think is a false issue in terms of a little ruffle and shuffle that goes on in these conventions. Steve, you and I in politics have gone back and seen a lot worse than what we saw there in the Donald Trump situation.
Okay, so basically, as I appreciate it, you feel that in this particular situation, at least, that she was the aggressor, that she broke through a media line, protected media line, got into his face, Trump's face, touched him, maybe even battered him then?
Steve, I don't think anybody shoved or pushed. Look, we can go back in history of Louisiana politics on TV and look at Chicago in 1968 when Dan Rather was thrown to the ground. And this was just a minor incident. I think she was trying to get an exclusive, looked like a young reporter. I can see why she did what she did. She talked to Trump. He's moving on. She touches his arm. The security person, happened to be his campaign manager, took her arm and moved her aside. It was all about nothing. There never should have been a complaint filed. We shouldn't have seen all this hoopla. She maybe went a little far, as an aggressor reporter would do. I'd have probably done the same thing. When she was pushed to back away, she should have backed away. And so this has all been blown out of proportion. I mean, if she wants to file charges, I guess Trump can file charges against her for grabbing him in the first place. So these things happen in politics. And I think there's been huge overreaction by the media, by this young lady, and a little bit on the Trump side, although quite frankly, he was defending his campaign manager. You might ask the question, if you're running if I'm running for a state representative in Concordia Parish, my old home, maybe my campaign manager is driving around with me. If you're running for president of the United States, I'm wondering why the campaign manager is not back in the campaign office organizing this whole event. But he was there next to Trump, and there was this altercation. But it should be blown over. This should not be made a major incident. And I think that the general public feels that way too. If you look at the video, I haven't seen any polls or numbers, but the people I've talked to says, what's the big deal? I mean, she bumped into him. Life goes on. Get with it. I think, once again, these confrontations help Trump more than hurt Trump with the voters and with his supporters.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. I think that anything that happens helps Trump with his supporters and maybe with some voters, and that's just the way that it has been. I mean, no matter what he does, I mean, he is the super duper Teflon candidate, and and whether for good or bad, I mean, I think that's just the way things are. So let's just look at the videos just so that we can, let's see if we agree or disagree or whatever. Look, let me just say this: in my view, is this the biggest issue that we should deal with? No, I think that his foreign policy, as far as I'm concerned, really ought to be discussed, and which was touched on last night during the CNN town hall. And I think there's some real issues there. There are a lot of issues. His statements that he's made about women, regarding women, etc. I mean, I think that's alarming. And I think that this ties into the latter. I think that, this one incident by itself, it's not necessarily a big issue. Okay, I mean, she was pulled. And I think it got bigger because of what happened afterwards. But I think it's broader. It ties into the broader issue, and that is the lack of respect that he seems to have, and this campaign also seems to have with women. And I know there's, millions of women who are going to say, oh, you're nuts. But I think that if you look at the polls, at least, I mean, has a very high unfavorable with women around the country. So before we get to the video, that's my initial response to what you've had to say.
I don't disagree with you, Steve, in terms of some things he said. Those who would defend him, and I've got a number of folks I talk to who do defend him, say it really is not directed against women. It's just his off-the-cuff way of saying things that are exaggerated. He shows about a 45% support within women. I'm living in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Over lunch the other day around the crowd, 10 women there, 4 love Donald Trump. There's 6 out of the 10 love Donald Trump. And so when they're all for him, they don't care what he said about a particular woman or a particular issue. They are more concerned about gridlock in Washington, about immigration that they don't understand and in terms of what's happening in this country, the trade deficit where people don't have jobs, and yet we're sending all these jobs overseas, and no one's showing any sympathy. They're saying, well, that's just the way it is. That's just how the world works, just how it's going to be. And Trump is back in the face of all those issues, of all the establishment, and they like that, and they're willing to forgive him on many of the off-the-cuff remarks that normally would sink a politician. He gets away with it, Steve. That's the best I can handle.
Okay, so I'm going to stop it at different points just so we can look at it. And you can see right here, okay, she has, in terms of the video that has been available, maybe it's some other video, but this is what I was able to obtain. So she has already reached him, and there is Lewandowsky here. Okay, so he's right there in the presence, just about, and I'm assuming that he's also surrounded around by Secret Service. I mean, he has Secret Service. I don't know what role he would play as a Secret Service person.
Well, the Secret Service are supposed to protect him. And if you look in front of Trump, the fellow with the glasses and then the fellow in front of him, they both they're not looking back at Trump like all the other crowd is doing. They obviously are security people that are there to protect him. Also next to the campaign manager in back of him, looks like a guy with some kind of a button on. So he's got around him on 3 or 4 sides his security, which is understandable.
But this is also, let me say this. I mean, I've been to a lot of these press conferences, and this is a press conference. And, when you're dealing with Secret Service, what you're talking about, the media being screened. Now, I can't say for a fact because I wasn't there. Okay, I can't say for a fact that they are being screened, but I mean, you have to leave your computer. You have to leave your video, your camera. I mean, you are being screened. So the idea that somebody, such as Sirhan is going to come into this environment, you can see everybody here are media people. I mean, the idea that there's going to be a heightened state of security, given the fact that, one, you already have Secret Service people. Secondly, I believe you're going to have this incredible protection just in advance of the press conference, and is beyond me. So, I understand what you're saying. I understand what Trump is saying and others protecting him are saying. Not that necessarily that you're protecting him, but others that I've heard who I believe are protecting him and verbally protecting him. I don't see it. Okay, so let's move on, unless you have a comment.
Well, the only thing I'll tell you, if you look to the right, you'll see people using iPhones to take pictures. There's 3 or 4 people using iPhones. If you look over on the far left, there's a young girl in a pink sweater, look like they're awfully young. Maybe they're media, but they don't, there's an awful lot of young people there in these press conferences. And I know that, you're supposed to be screened, but I don't know if a candidate has every single person coming into a press conference, any gathering screened. I don't know if they do that. All I'm saying is that there is security around him, and if you look at this whole picture, it's a great picture. People bounce into each other. People get shoved. If you go above Trump's head and go back about 4 people, there's some fella grabbing the arm of another fella. Maybe that's a friendly pull. I don't know. Okay. But people get bounced into. But things happen like that.
Okay.
And
so yeah, I
don't think I run to court and bring criminal charges. Is the point I'm making.
I understand. Again, to me, the issue is not necessarily this one event. It's a broader issue. Okay. And anyway, that's my position. However, I am offended by some of the things that has happened here, and so let's see. Maybe I might be convinced otherwise. Let's move on. So we see that she has moved on, and he's still over here. Okay, so he's reaching in right there, and they're talking.
Well, I say they're talking. He's looking down. He's not focusing on her in any way. And the next thing is he's moving on.
Okay. Well, I believe there's the audio. Okay, and we'll put that up in a second. So let me move forward a little bit. Actually, okay. So right there, he's grabbing her.
Well, he hadn't touched her yet.
Yeah. Okay. So you can see right there. I'm not going to say that she has fallen to the ground. Far from.
She's standing up straight. She's barely been touched, Steve. I mean, the more I see this, the more outraged I am as a citizen that this is what we've come to. We run off, and the guy's been arrested for something like that, going to have a criminal record on because he's trying to reach out to protect his boss and tell a young lady that enough is enough. He's moving on. He doesn't want to talk to you, and she doesn't slip. She doesn't move forward. To me, that's outrageous. She's the one that ought to be sued.
Wait. Okay. And Trump is the one to do that. I mean, he's certainly going to sue just about everybody. So it seems. But I mean, so you think it's okay for, say, a woman or your daughter or somebody could, to be talking, a member of the media now, to be talking to a candidate, and all of a sudden, out of the blue, instead of going up to this person being pulled, that's okay?
My daughter, by the way, my oldest daughter, was a major focus in the media on the Today Show and on the CNN. So I've got a daughter in the media.
Yeah, absolutely.
I've not talked to her about this. And by the way, I've got to call her afterwards. I'll ask her that very question, Steve.
Okay.
But all I'm saying is a guy reaching out that looks like he's saying, enough is enough, young lady, move on back. And he might have touched your arm. To say that criminal act is
have touched her arm.
Well, okay. What? I think it's outrageous.
Okay.
You know what? If Donald Trump wants me to, and I'm not for Donald Trump, but I think that this is kind of malarkey. I'll tell you what. I think if people take the time to look at this, if you're on the line but you kind of like Trump, you're going to be all the more for him. I think this helps him and not hurts him at all, and I think her actions are outrageous.
Here's a different video, and it shows here, this is, Lewandowski, and that's her. And I'm just going to do time lapse. So, he's actually turning to her. This is where he originated, okay? And this is where she originated, and they moved on. And this is by the way, this is 4 seconds, as we shall see.
Back up a little bit, though. I just think it's fascinating that he's obviously telling her, back off, leave my boss alone. And to me, it looks like a very normal thing that someone protecting the candidate would do.
But 4.7 seconds before the actual touch, Okay, I'll play it. I'll play the entire thing so you can see. And this is when he's. I mean, the camera shows that he starts after her. Okay, and so here, watch.
Hasn't touched her. Hasn't touched her. Hasn't touched her.
Okay, 4.7 4.7 seconds. Now, you have heard. I know I've heard his supporters. And I think he even made some kind of claim that, well, she was holding something, so therefore they may have, he may have been a risk. She could have been a terrorist. You never know what, I mean, who knows what, she had in her hand. 4.7 seconds has elapsed. Secret Service, I mean, for 4.7 seconds in a closed environment of a press conference, and this guy's going to pull this lady?
Well, but Steve, I don't think it's a security thing. Look, I think the key on this is, if you go back and look at the video, starting after about 1.5 seconds, Trump's had enough. He's turned. He's walking away. If he wanted to engage and talk to her, he'd be looking at her and talking to her. And so it tells the campaign manager, the boss is moving on. He doesn't want to talk to this gal anymore. She's being persistent. My job is to protect the boss, and I'm going to tell her, young lady, you're in our line of movement in our press conference. It's time you moved away. I think it's completely legitimate. And the fact, I mean, the more we talk about it, the more outraged I am that this guy who I don't know, and number one, I don't think he should be there. He should be back in the campaign headquarters. But having said that, there's just absolutely no justification.
Well, okay, so let me ask this. I mean, talking about justification, don't you think that maybe this guy Corey should have gone around and said, "Hey, look, you've had it. That's enough," or I mean, rather than pull this lady. I mean, no, she didn't hit the floor. He said that he didn't even touch her.
Well, I think he touched her, but barely. If you look at the pictures, Steve, she does not waver. She's standing up straight. She never was bent over. She never looked off balance. He's
now, wait, hold on.
Look at Trump. Look at Trump.
Yeah.
He's ignoring her. He doesn't want to talk to her anymore. And Corey is doing.
Wait, hold on. Look at that. Never looked off balanced.
She looks like she's standing up there, the knee straight.
Yeah, well, okay, she's standing upright there. I mean, vertical, upright. Now watch this. I mean, okay, so I don't know. You're not just going to have to heal. I'll do it again.
Donald Trump
right there.
Ignoring her. Donald Trump is completely ignoring her, Steve. He doesn't want to have any.
Maybe he doesn't know that she has been pulled.
Well, I think he's through with her, and the message given to Corey is, look, get this gal out of my way. I'm moving on. I've talked to her, and I don't want to sit here and talk to her anymore. So Corey,
wait. So he's got some power of telepathy. He's saying, Corey, get this lady out of here.
Visibly, that's what it looks like to me. He's turned his back and walking away from me. She's being persistent, and Corey is saying, his campaign is saying, lady, enough's enough. And she might be mad about it, and I could see a nasty tweet from her or from her whatever news organization she works for.
Breitbart, a very, very staunch conservative organization she worked for.
She's not even what organization was it?
Breitbart.
Okay, well that's fine, but Trump has said enough.
A very pro-Trump news organization, I think almost as pro as the magazine that put that outed Ted Cruz.
Well, maybe she's made the Breitbart organization mad, and maybe that's Trump's. But I think that's a problem for Trump, not a problem for him. I just try and look. I like to jump on the guys that malangle the press, and you and I are in the press. In that case, though, I just if that's as you said about 10 minutes ago in our discussion, with what's going on in this country today and how incendiary these campaigns are, and my gosh, we've had follow-up to terrorist activities in Brussels. The Supreme Court has caused Congress to be complete gridlock. And yet all we've seen in the last 2 days, if I turned on CNN or MSNBC right now, I'm sure all I'd be seeing is that video. I think it's much ado about nothing, Steve, is my honest opinion.
Okay, so here is, by the way, now here is the transcript. I can't say it's the complete transcript, but here's a transcript of the conversation. And it says, Mr. Trump, you went after the late Scalia for affirmative action. Or are you still against affirmative action? Okay, so she's asking him a question, and voice, allegedly Corey Lewandowski, excuse me, thank you. A few moments later, noise in the room can be heard.
Stop right there, Steve. Stop right there.
Yeah.
What Corey is saying, thank you, it's over. The boss doesn't want to talk to you. It's our press conference. Move on, young lady. That's what the message was from Corey.
Well, as he's pulling her. Excuse me, thank you. I'm pulling you. Okay. I mean, could have gone around them and say, okay, enough. But he pulls her. Excuse me, thank you.
I think he reached for her arm. I don't see that as a pull. Or this guy Tara says, yeah, he just threw you.
Yeah. Okay. So Tara says, you okay? And she says, holy. He says, Tara says, yeah, he just threw you. Field says, I can't believe he just did that. That was so hard. Was that Corey? Yeah. Like, what threat were you? That was insane. You should have felt how hard he grabbed me. Again, this is Breitbart, okay, reporter. That's insane. I never had anyone do that to me from a campaign. I cannot put that in a story. Yeah, go for it. That was really awful. That's unpleasant. He really just almost threw you on the ground.
Okay? Hey, stop, Steve, right there. You and I saw the video. That is so far from the truth. That's just an outrageous false statement. That's incendiary. It's just not true.
Well, wait, okay, but if you look at her position where, I mean, no, she wasn't horizontal to the ground, and she, but I'll put it like this. I certainly wouldn't want, say my wife pulled like that, where, all of a sudden, she is being, she's no longer vertical, but she is certainly, the angle of her body is at least, I would say, say 10% or say 20% at a 10 o'clock angle.
Well, she had high heels on.
Well, that's even more, but it's still, you would agree with me that, it's still like at a 10 o'clock angle. It wasn't, say, a 9 o'clock angle. It wasn't an 11 o'clock angle. It was like a 10 o'clock angle.
Steve, in big crowds like that, in people in very close quarters, people are going to bump into each other. Someone's going to grab someone. That is just the way of life of being a reporter. And I'm very
happened to me.
I'm anxious. I'll be stunned if my daughter. I'll be stunned if she says that there's justification for criminal charges in a case like this.
Okay, so he tweets. Corey tweets afterwards. I never touched you. That's what he said. I never touched you. I don't even know you. I mean, we're supposed to believe his credibility after he has said that, I never touched you?
Well, he reached out for her, and from the video, it looks like he did touch her, but nothing more than that. Nothing more than that.
Oh, he didn't grab her? Okay. I'd say that he grabbed her. You say that he hardly even touched her. So,
I'll tell you what, that young lady, if she could, in her quiet moments, could relive the whole thing over again, she would do exactly that. Only this time around, she'd hope they would shove her to the ground, because now she's a figure. She's got her 15 minutes of fame. 100 to 1, she'd do the same thing over again, and glad to be grabbed, and wished it was harder so she could be all over the news like she is right now. Now all of a sudden she's somebody. Before this happened, she was just a nobody minor reporter, Steve. So.
Well, you're right. You're right. I mean, she certainly she filed a lawsuit. Now Trump is thinking about filing a lawsuit against her for her touching him. Okay.
Crosstalk. Trump, what is this? would have happened, went to the ground or something to the effect she almost went to the ground? She was in pain?
Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah, I put this up here. Okay, so, yeah, Cooper said, this is from yesterday. And I sent this to you before so that you would be acquainted with it. With it. Okay. It says, let me ask you about Lewandowski. Initially, your campaign said this never happened. There was no video of it. You came out and said you thought this person was perhaps making it up. Okay. This reporter. Lewandowski himself tweeted saying, I never met this reporter. I never touched this person. Now this videotape shows he clearly touched this person. Whether or not you think it was battery or not, Trump said touch. I don't know what touch means. I looked. Cooper says, well, he says, I never touched this person. Trump says, and then she says, oh, look at my arm. And then this comes crosstalk. Cooper says, did he mislead you at all? Trump said, not at all. No, not at all. Look, I don't know. We had all these security cameras all over, but the time I found out, I said, well, this is really wonderful. This exonerates him totally. Now, there's some crosstalk. Trump says, would have happened, some inaudible, went to the ground or something to the effect that she almost went to the ground. She was in pain. She went to the ground. So in other words, he's saying, look, she never went to the ground. She wasn't even close that she went to the ground. Her statement that she gave that almost went to the ground wasn't even close. When she found out that there was a security camera and that there had been her on tape, all of a sudden that story changed. She didn't talk about it. Cooper says, no, that's not true. She says her story has remained exactly the same, that she was knocked a little bit off. And then Trump says, oh, really? Can I read this to you? And so he takes out his paper and has Cooper read it out loud. And basically, this is, Trump says, now that's the exact quote from her to seeing the camera. Now she says, oh, I better change my story. Now, of course, that's assuming that that's what she's saying. Cooper says, the quote says, this is the quote that Trump has, and this is the actual quote. I was jolted backwards. Someone had grabbed me tightly by the arm. I yanked me. I almost now fell to the ground, but was able. Trump says, yank you down. Did you see it? Did she almost fall to the ground? My position is this. She was yanked. She lost her balance to a degree of a 10 o'clock position like that. Okay. No, she wasn't. She didn't fall to the ground, but she lost her balance. That's my position. Lewandowski, the campaign manager, who you're supposed to believe, said that he didn't even touch her. Trump says that, there's nothing to it. He said that, didn't even touch her. He believed him. Trump believed him, not her. Evidence is he did touch her to the extent where she had to move like that. So to me, go on.
Last night, my wife and I went out to dinner, and she fixed my salad for me, and she put on honey and mustard. And I said, I like oil and vinegar. I don't like honey and mustard. She says, no, you don't. We argued about it a little bit. Steve, so what? Who gives a rat's ass? This, to me, is much to do about nothing, and it's diverting from as Trump is good to do about diverting from significant issues in this campaign. But in terms of criminal charges or anything like this, I mean,
no, look, let me say, I'm not in favor of criminal charges. I mean, I'm not in favor of, hurting this guy's career or, his family or anything of that nature. Just like I'm not crazy about, Trump tweeting a picture of Cruz's wife compared to his wife. Nor am I crazy about they're putting a picture of his of his wife that she took for CQ magazine, up there, in Utah, trying to make her look bad and him look bad. I'm not crazy about any of that collateral stuff. I will say, however, that in my opinion, this one incident is representative of who Donald Trump is.
What if it had been a man? What if it had been a male reporter?
I'm sorry?
What if it had been a male reporter and instead of Corey grabbing your arm, the Secret Service agent grabbed your arm? Would you be just as upset?
I would say, number one, that's within the ambit of the Secret Service. I think the Secret Service, probably would have taken some other action, given the fact that, the Secret Service had at least 4.7 seconds to realize that, this guy was not in danger, as some of the CNN people and other people who are pro-Trump have been saying that, hey, that Trump was in danger, okay? Lewandowski thought that Trump was in danger. Obviously not. So, your answer is, my answer to you is that if it was a male, okay, I think that's a little bit more deference to a male than a woman, yes. A Secret Service, I would say a Secret Service is going to have a whole lot, is going to probably ignore it, like they did in this situation.
Well, I'm not sure they saw it, though, but I'm just saying, do you think there'd be just as much attention to this issue if the Secret Service agent had told the young lady, leave Mr. Trump alone, and taken his arm and pushed her back and pushed her away?
I think that this, as I've mentioned, is symbolic of Donald Trump, okay? What Donald Trump could have said from the very beginning was, look, I'm sorry if my campaign manager went and grabbed you. Let me look at the video, and I'll come back and I will tell you what I think. And if I've got to go and make an apology, I'll do that, okay? But instead, he is on the defense and on the attack. The same type of attack, okay, same type of attack that we experienced with Bill Clinton with the Clinton bimbo eruptions, okay? I mean, the same kind of attack. Go after the messenger. Go after, this is not the kind of person I want as president, I got to tell you.
It has the interesting comment you make, and I see what you're saying. It goes to a pattern, is what you're saying.
It goes to a pattern.
I guess my question is,
behavior.
Has Donald Trump ever apologized about anything? I've never heard him apologize about anything.
So that's good? That's good?
Well, no, I'm not saying it's good. I'm just saying that's just the guy's style. He don't apologize. He turns an attack or a criticism or an event that would bring down most candidates into a plus for him, where that does energize his supporters and those who favor Donald Trump.
I agree with what you're saying. I mean, if you want to have a kind of fighter, a boxer, sure, absolutely. But if you're dealing with the world stage, where your enemies have nukes, and if we had Donald Trump as a president, probably more of our friends who might turn into enemies, and more of enemies who might, send it to other enemies will have nukes. So we're on a world stage, and here is a guy who, who finds that it's more important for him to beat the other guy than to try to fix a problem. That's the kind of guy that we're going to have as president.
Let me give you this analysis, though. Trump's no fool. You may not like he's crass, he's terrible with women, all the things you say I agree with, but he ain't no fool. Now, let me tell you what you just said. I think what you said is indicative of why his support is so large. You're saying, but he's got to operate on the world stage. What many, many millions of Americans in middle America are saying, well, look what's happening on the world stage. We're kowtowing to Saudi Arabia and these folks in the Middle East. We've got 40,000 troops in South Korea. We got 50,000 troops in Japan. Their economies are doing well. Why can't
Russia loves.
In other words,
would love this. I mean, you realize. I mean, seriously. I understand what you're saying. Okay.
He's playing to his crowd. He's playing to his crowd.
Playing to his crowd. Exactly. And he's also playing to the Kremlin. I mean, do you realize that Russia's saying, let's vote for Trump because you know what's going to happen? We're going to have a really weak Korea. We're going to have a really weak Japan. We're going to have a really weak Middle East because Trump is going to say, just let them fend for themselves.
Well, I don't know. I don't think he said that. I think he says you got to start putting up some bucks. We're paying. He's talking about NATO, for example, where there is a formula. I've read about NATO a good bit. You're supposed to put up about 2% of, I believe, your gross national product for tied to defense into NATO. Every member is. America puts in about 4%. England, France, and most of the other countries put in like 10%. 0.010%. They're not carrying their agreed load. And what Trump is saying, look, we're going to operate in the world stage. We ain't going to pay for everybody. We're carrying everybody's weight. We're carrying too many people at too heavy a cost. Now, the neocons, the George Bush types, don't agree with that. The Mitt Romney types think that's just what we should do because we're trying to protect Coca-Cola and General Motors and Apple to sell worldwide. But to middle America out there, many who've lost their jobs, who've seen less money today than they had 20, 30 years ago, they're saying, he's making a good point. We're all for protecting ourselves and helping the world, but they got to pay their fair share. And right now they're not. And that's America
has wanted this. America has wanted this, during the Cold War, as you know. I mean, after World War II, if Japan had the atomic bomb or Germany had the atomic bomb, who knows what have happened? So now with Trump, okay, if because of his aggressiveness and his acerbic behavior, he is unpredictable, and so our allies. I mean, quite frankly, if I'm an ally, I'm going to say. My God, I don't trust this guy one iota. I mean, this guy is a madman.
But you know what, Steve? Our allies aren't going to vote for the next president of the United States.
Right, exactly. I understand that. I understand that.
Looking at the polls, saying this resonates with voters that are going to get me the nomination, and I can, go back and look at some of the outrageous things Obama said. And he changed his mind once he became president. So I think Trump's advisors saying, look, let's get elected. We'll work this out. We'll go sit down with these folks, say, well, I didn't really mean all that. I had to get myself elected. We've seen that in politics for years in this state.
I don't remember a single politician recommending that Japan arm itself with a nuke, or South Korea arm itself with a nuke, a mass proliferation of nukes. I mean, this guy has no concept of foreign policy. I mean, he's playing to a crowd. But, the statements that he makes today are going to come back and not just haunt him, but haunt America.
But, Steve, you're saying all these things about his relationship with women and what a thug he is and how the rest of the world hates him. And you know what? He's going to be the Republican nominee for president of the United States, and he's going to run a nip and tuck race and maybe even be elected. So you're echoing what a number of people are saying, and there are millions and millions of Trump voters who are saying, yeah, you know what? And I like him standing up for us. I'm sick and tired of those politicians and the world politicians, and I'm going to vote for Trump. I got a good relative last night that almost got up in the restaurant and screamed, I don't care what you say. Trump is speaking for me. Screamed it out in the restaurant. So it's a fact of life out there, and we may be stuck with this guy whether we like it or not. I agree.
Right. And one last thing in response to that, I think that what we have here is a person who wants to be president, who is embarrassing so many of us, look at the question that was asked yesterday. I don't know if you saw it, but a Trump supporter apparently asked the question, why can't you be more like your son? Okay, why can't you be more quiet, more have a better presence? That is the issue. You're dealing with, we're sending a message to our kids that our President of the United States does not have to be a respectable person, doesn't have to have a personality that is respected, can be a bully, can just say whatever he wants to say, whether it's in a classroom or in a courtroom or whatever it may be. The boundaries don't have to be there anymore. That is what we're now telling the world, and the population who are voting for him is saying, yes, I agree.
There's perception and there's reality, both in politics and in life. John Kasich, for example, a very nice man, very competent governor, was
Sure.
a huge force in Washington, D.C. in working out budget problems. By all accounts, should have been a major contender for president of this country.
Absolutely.
Getting 4 and 5%. He's a nice guy. He's doing what that Trump supporter would like to have Trump do. Trump is up there around 50%. Kasich at 4%. So there's a calculated effort going on. Like I say, you may not like Trump's lifestyle and comments, but he ain't stupid. And in spite of the fact that he says, I'm my own advisor, you know darn well he's looking at polls. His first charge is to get the Republican nomination. That's the first step he's trying to undertake. And I think he's doing, in his opinion, let me tell you what, Steve. I ran for governor of Louisiana. I was Mr. Nice Guy. I was the only guy that wrote a plan out about the future of the state. I had people like Alan Katz of the Times-Picayune State. Brown is brilliant. He's got a great plan. This is the kind of guy we need, you see. And the only race I lost was when I was the nice guy and didn't attack anybody and laid out issues for the future. And I got shellacked, Steve. I got shellacked. So then I ran for insurance commissioner and had 3 or 4 nasty campaigns, won them all. And I wasn't comfortable doing that, but that's what it took to get elected. So I think that's where Trump is coming from. If he gets into the election, I don't think he'll be all that much nicer in the election, particularly with Hillary Clinton, who looks like she's got the nomination.
Well, and believe me, I am in no respect a fan of Hillary Clinton. My candidate at this point in time is John Kasich, although I have some issues with him. But, in terms of, those people who are available, he is, my candidate. And so we'll have to wait and see. We'll have to wait and see. So listen,
we'll analyze this a lot more, Steve. Since I give you the candidate, I'm very interested in. I have on my radio show, my nationally syndicated program this weekend, a former governor of New Mexico who went out in office as the highest popularity guy out there. He's climbed Mount Everest. He's done about 10 triathlons. He's Mr. America. His name is Governor Gary Johnson. He's running as a Libertarian candidate. And he ran 4 years ago, got 1% of the vote.
Right.
So Gary ain't going to do too well, but that's the candidate I'd like to see emerge. But
right.
We're going to have to look for alternatives.
It's amazing. It's just amazing that at this point in time, in my opinion, there are no real options, and it's really frustrating. So anyway, listen, thank you. I really appreciate the opportunity to discuss this, and watching the video and taking the transcript and looking at it, and we'll do it again. Let me stop the recording. Let me stop the recording.